Hi, thank you so much for taking a few minutes and listening to this video to preclude having to have a pre-class lecture. I am so excited about chemistry class. I can hardly describe how I feel when I get ready for the beginning of the class periods, and as I start to meet your kids and see how they study and see how things go. It's just a really wonderful experience for me, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to teach them. Students, thank you so much for all the hard work you've put into getting ready for this class and getting pumped and getting your books together and getting ready to explore the world of chemistry. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and it's a hard class. I'm not going to tell you that it's just a breeze, but that's okay. We're going to work through it. You're going to learn a lot of really cool things and be amazed at how God has put the world together and all the ways that He makes it work together so that you can exist, and so that living things can exist, and that we can have nice things around us. I think you're going to enjoy this class. There's two things that I want to talk about in this pre-class lecture, and one of them, I could just tell you that I want you to use a 3-ring binder. That's the bottom line. I don't want you to come into class with something like this. Can you see it? Spiral bound notebook. I want you to have a 3-ring binder. It can be a thin one. You don't need a big thick one. We'll add pages as we go. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And I'm getting more and more picky the more of these classes that I teach. I more and more want you to have a 3-ring binder instead of a composition book. Sometimes I let it slide, but so far every time that I've let it slide, I've regretted it. So just humor me this time and make sure that you come into class with a 3-ring binder, your textbook, and a pen. You're ready for class. And but so that you understand why, let me back up. Okay, and most of you have already heard me give this talk, and for those of you, I guess you could plug your ears for right now and just watch, and I'll nod my head when it's time for you to unplug your ears. It has to do with the way you learn. Your brain cannot remember something unless it can attach it to something that you already know. Does that make sense? You have to kind of know something already before you can take new information and stick it to that new information. Then you can remember it. And a great example of this is setting up a password or a PIN number. When you do an online account, or your mom gets a new debit card and she has to get a PIN number, and the very first thing she's going to do is go to the bank and she's going to change that PIN number that they gave to something she can remember. Okay, and that's why they always have to tell you not to use your birthday, your anniversary, something common knowledge known about you, because then other people can figure out what your PIN is also. But sure enough, we usually figure out some way to attach it to something that's already in our head so we can remember. So you're like, well, what does that have to do with a composition book? So let me attach this to some old information. Most of the time, and I've seen it happen a lot in college, kids come to a class and they have not read their material, and they listen to a teacher talk for an hour about brand new material they've never heard before, and they don't have any idea what she's talking about. It sounds like Greek or something like that, and so they try to write down some notes, but it doesn't go so well, and they think, oh, well, when I get back to my room, I'm going to study my textbook. But you know what? After an hour of listening to a teacher talk about something that you don't understand, the last thing you want to do is pick up a textbook and read it. And so they wait and they let their brain rest because it's so tired from listening to this. And then after a day or two, then they open their book and they try to read, and it still sounds like Greek, because now they can't remember what the teacher said either, and they can't connect those two bits of information together. So what I want to do is I want to reverse that process. Okay, I want to already have some information in your head when you show up to class, so that when I talk, it's second time through, and we can connect those two bits of information. We can do a couple of problems, and you're going to be like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, I remember that from reading it. So what I want you to do is, in your notebook, this is kind of different, and we're going to give it a try. Okay, we're going to try this until December. And then if it just is not working at all, then we'll have a discussion about that then. But when you take your notes, okay, can you see my notebook? There we go. When you take your notes for class, you're going to read your book. And as you read, Dr. Weil is great. He puts important stuff in bold in the center of the page. He wants you to memorize that. If it's in bold letters anywhere, you need to write it down. Okay, so you're going to write it on the back side of the page. You're going to write it here. Okay, and you're going to leave this page blank. This page is going to be for my information. The stuff I tell you in class, you'll put over here. Hopefully, it will correspond with the stuff you've got written here, so that your information's here, mine is there. That's 2 times. Dr. Weil, you've read it once and you've heard me say it. So you've been over the information 3 or 4 times. By the time you get to the study guide and to the test, piece of cake. You'll be able to pass those tests and not have to worry about it. So, in other words, before you come to class, you have to read, okay? And the reason I wanted you to have a 3-ring binder instead of a composition book is because he has questions written all through the chapter that you're going to be reading along, and there'll be some on your own problems. I want you to work those on your own problems in your notebook, on your notebook sheets. And then occasionally, not every time you come to class, but occasionally, I'm going to say, okay, class, I want you to turn in on your own questions 13.2 and 13.3. And that way, instead of having to rip a page out of your composition book and mess up your notebook, you can just unclip it and hand me the sheet. And then when I grade it and I hand it back, you can clip it right back in where it belongs. So we don't end up with notebooks that have pages all sticking out of them. So that's kind of why I want the 3-ring binder. So if I ask for homework, you can hand it to me, and we can get it put right back in where it belongs the following week. Our class only meets 1 day a week, and that's not very long for us. It's a lot of time you just trying to figure things out on your own. The book is really good about that, and so I want you to have questions when you come to class. If you've read the chapter, you probably have something that you're curious about. So I want you to ask that during class. So that's why I want the 3-ring binder, so I can ask for homework and you don't have to rip things out. The second thing you may be saying is, well, how do I know what to read? You know, how will I find out? Do you hand out a syllabus or something like that? Well, what I have is an online grading system. My grade book and all my lesson plans are online. It's called jupitergrades.com. I will send your parents and you an email, and there's a password. And guess what? You can keep that password if you want to, or you can change it to something you can actually remember. And when you go into Jupiter Grades, you're going to have an assignment page that you can go into, and it will have all of the assignments for the whole year is posted, but obviously as we get into it, dates will be changing and I'll be moving things around a little bit. So don't just think you can print it out and just stick with that. We may have to change as we go. In the assignment page, one thing I want you to remember is that the due date, that means when I want that stuff done, not when you start that stuff. I had a couple of kids show up a few times that they said, well, I thought I was supposed to start reading on that day. No, that is when I want it finished. So if it says read pages 1 through 150, which it won't ever say that, but 1 through 10 by August 31st, that means you're done with page 10 before August 31st when you show up to class. Does that make sense? I think it does. Due date means when it's due. Homework, when I assign it and I call for it, I will come home and I will enter your grades that day. If you show up to class and you don't have your homework, sorry, it's got to be a 0, because I can't give you an extra week to finish your homework when everybody else had it done the week prior. But so don't worry though. I'll give you opportunities to make up for classes, make up for things that maybe fell through the crack and you missed or something like that. I'll give you ways of making good grades. I want you to succeed in this class. It's a really fun class, and I think you're going to like it. So I'm not trying to give you zeros, but if you show up without your notebook and I ask for homework, that's just a zero. There's no way I can get around it. And when I put it in the grade book, your mom and dad are going to get an email saying, hey, your kid just made a zero. And that's going to get your mom and dad on your back too. So you really don't want to do that. Show up for class having read your book, and you have your notes in your book. You're ready to go, and all the on your own problems are worked. So that's what's expected. Students, you're going to need to read about 45 minutes every day in chemistry. Okay, don't wait until Monday night and you think you're going to read the entire half of the chapter getting ready for class, because it's just going to be too much information. It would be much better for you to read 45 minutes every single day. And if you're ahead of time, then okay, you can drop back to 30 minutes a day, depending on how quickly you read. But a little bit every day is better than a big cram session right before class. Let me see what else I need to want to tell you. Parents, here's what you need to know. You're going to have a password too to get into Jupiter Grades. You can see what your student needs to read for class or needs to turn in for class. So it really doesn't work to say, well, I didn't know what they were supposed to do, because you can get in and look as well at the grade book and know what your students are doing. And so you're not off the hook either, and you're going to be the one that gives them their test. I hand them the test in an envelope and they take it home, but you administer the test. Make sure you understand it's not an open book test. If they've done their study guide, they should be ready for it, and then you give them the test and you have them put it back in their envelope, ready to hand back in. But I'll grade it. You don't have to grade that. I think, let's see, I will be emailing you with the password. Our first class is going to be September the 3rd. That's Tuesday. I have to remember when we decided to meet. I think we said at 1 o'clock to 2:30 is our class time. And I want you to come to class having read the first half of Module 1. So thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please email me. You should have that pretty soon. So I look forward to seeing you, and we're going to have a great year. See you then. It's not working.